Hey there, it's Yafania, and you're watching The Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press today. I'm happy to be joined by Yafania. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful to do this interview. I'm excited to get into it.
Us as well. I mean, I know we were talking about this for some time now, back when you were kind of shooting the music videos with Pearce, who we'll talk about in a bit back in May earlier this year. So I'm glad we're finally getting to chat about it since two of them have been released. But before we get into those music videos, tell me about your earliest memories with music and how that passion grew and was cultivated.
Sure. So, from as early as I can remember, music has always been a constant in my life. I used to create songs and sing compositions around the house for my family and, make my own little tunes and perform. So, music has always been second nature to me, even though I'm self-taught. But for me, it's always been a form of self-expression and relief, and it's always been a spotlight for me, and it always teaches me something new about myself every time I write. So I'm really grateful to have that connection to music and have an outlet like that.
Who were some artists that you listened to when you were younger? Is there anything that comes to mind, like the songs that you were singing around the home, things like that?
Oh, of course. I used to create mostly like my own songs, like my own little tunes, my own little riffs, and just sing them with a 5-year-old's vocabulary, if you can imagine how that sounds. But but it was always just there and it was always present. But I think maybe growing up, maybe like cartoons, like
The
as a
easiest
child.
one, yeah,
Yeah,
when you're
the
kind of like blah
easiest
blah blah
one.
when you mentioned the vocabulary is not 100% there yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely had an eclectic taste growing up. So yeah, that's always been my connection to music.
Your mom, she encouraged you to write everything you want to say and fill your pages, which is just such wonderful advice to hear from someone so close to you.
Of course, it's always of everyone out there. Shout out to the moms out there. No, but seriously, it was so sweet just getting that kind of recognition from her about the fact that I was songwriting and she supported me all the way. So, yeah, I love you, mom, if you're watching this.
Can you pinpoint the time when you knew you wanted to create original music and pursue a career in the arts?
Of course, yeah. So I was invited to a youth event. And before that, I used to keep the fact that I wrote music hidden. And it's something that a lot of songwriters I know have been through as well, where they keep a lot of their works hidden, private. It's very personal, and deep for them. So I was in that state. But then I was invited to a youth event and I got to perform on stage, and the outpour of support and love that I got on stage and backstage and after the performance really encouraged me because before I had been thinking about pursuing it professionally and it was always there, but I kind of put it in a box. I kind of pushed it aside. But then going there and singing one of my own original songs, seeing all of the people and their eyes light up, and even some people like jamming in their seats, I knew that it was something I wanted to take seriously. And not too long after, I officially slated my first recording at a studio. I scheduled it. So, yeah, that is kind of the spark that started it all. And I was like, I should have a high school musical moment and I should take this professionally. And that's what I did.
That's wonderful. And sometimes you just need that little push and that breakthrough moment, like you mentioned, just hearing from others and getting feedback. You mentioned being self-taught. Like, do you have any training in terms of like whether it's vocals, the production, technical side?
Yeah, so it was something I had to learn with time. I did know some acoustic guitar beforehand, but yeah, in terms of songwriting, I love playing with song structure, and I studied a lot of artists and their song structure. So music has always been just that kind of form of study. So even though I'm self-taught, I do take it seriously, and I am well versed and knowledge, and I love learning about different genres. Going back to that eclectic taste. So I listen to some rock songs, pop songs, and I just really absorb that. And I try to have my own kind of spin on it.
That's incredible to be self-taught, like no really direct professional training, but it's clear that you take your craft very seriously. Like here you are learning on your own, learning how to do guitar and everything like that. Today you've listed artists, including Taylor Swift and All American Rejects, as musical inspirations, very different genres between the two. So can you expand on these two artists in particular and how they've inspired you?
Of course. I mean, with Taylor Swift specifically, she's an icon, and the Eras Tour has proven that. But beyond that, something I really appreciate about her is narrative-driven storytelling. I think that that's such a theme with her music, and she's wonderful at what she does with doing that. I also really appreciate how her fans and her as a songwriter, she always tried to sound different. She never had a rigid structure. Sure, there are elements that are kind of similar with the narrative-driven storytelling, but she always pushed herself to sound different. She never sounded constant or the same. And then, so that's for Taylor Swift. And then for the All American Rejects, I mean, they're fun. They also have narrative-driven storytelling as well, but there's also an edge to them. And yeah, man, what incredible performers. So the thing that kind of bleeds over to both of them is that narrative-driven storytelling with an edge to it. And yeah, that's why I love both of them. And if anyone has any tickets, I would love to go. I would love both of them. And yeah, I'll be there. But yeah, that's why they're really inspirational.
And I see in the background you also have posters for like the Cranberries, Smashing Pumpkins. So you're clearly like a bit of a rock girl growing up.
Yeah, exactly. The Mazzy Star one. Yeah. Yeah. So I love Mazzy Star. I love Hope Sandoval, the lead singer of Mazzy Star. I love her vocals. And then the Cranberries as well. I really love the Cranberries as an influence because they used to play with song structure. So that is something that I love to do in my own music. And so, yeah, so Cranberries, Smashing Pumpkins, and Mazzy Star, Taylor Swift, All American Rejects, and so many more. I love all different types of genres. So, yeah, but those are the main, maybe not trio, quartet. Yeah.
And when your music is also still evolving, like you're pretty early on in your career, there's so much time to kind of pull different influences from new music that's released and also, your older favorites as well. And visuals are also something very important to you. So tell me about how that affects your songwriting and if you're always conscious of a music video or accompanying visuals while you're writing that music.
100%. Every time I write a song, I always see the visuals playing in front of me as if they're in the same room. And it's been something that I've really treasured with my own music videos that are released, that all of the music videos were essentially inspired from the songs. The lyrics of the songs were a handbook for the music videos. And so, yes, in that regard, I always do see an accompanying music video with every song I write. And that's just how I'm wired. I just love visuals as well. And I love piecing a story together, creating a narrative. And that's why songwriting is so much fun because you don't only get to write songs and lyrics, but you get to tell a story. And yeah, that's the best part.
How did this passion for filmmaking and the cinema begin? Like, what types of films and graphics do you find yourself drawn towards?
Well, ever since I was younger, I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker at some point in my life. I didn't know it would be so early on, but it was always something that I was interested in. And so I used to have Microsoft PowerPoint, the old one from the early 2000s. And I just used to create 70 slides and create my own fantasy-ish screenplays. So definitely that screenwriter and writer part of me was always there. And then iMovie as well when it released. I used to just make so many iMovies. So that editing and filmmaker side has always been there. And the fact that I get to piece that with my music as a songwriter and the artist, as a whole, that's the best part. I love cinematic visuals and blending that with the lyrics because I like creating an audible, written, and immersive experience. And in terms of what graphics I go towards, I just remember that. In terms of what graphics I go towards, I have eclectic taste. So I love different types of graphics. But in terms of what I go towards, like now in this current era of my songwriting and chapter, I would say I love romantic imagery and movies, old Disney animation films, old Chaplin films like City Lights, IQ, You've Got Mail, Chocolat, Only You with Robert Downey Jr. and Marissa Tomei. and just you've got mail. And even though they're all different in terms of time and geography, something that's encapsulated in all of them is that feeling of being a romantic. And that's something that I always strive for in my music and my visuals.
Do you use, I think I read before, you use Pinterest as well. So when you're kind of conceptualizing those visuals, like do you have a Pinterest kind of board or collage for every song that you do?
Yeah, well, my mind kind of works like Pinterest. So there is that emphasis on boards. So they kind of help me structure what I'm going for. Because the lyrics serve as a handbook already, it's kind of easy to piece from the lyrics. But I think what those types of boards and visuals in that Pinterest board world, what they kind of do for me is that they help me realize the color schemes, the emotions, maybe an object or something that can be used in that regard. For example, like the right guy, that night scene, that whole turquoise theme, that was heavily inspired off of rain imagery, you know, your classic trope of falling in love in the rain. So, yeah, there are indirect kind of maybe inspirations that go into that and that form a larger narrative.
Tell me about your process as a songwriter. It's something so ingrained in you. What do you find yourself inspired by on a daily basis, and how do you record those thoughts and ideas?
For my songs, it really is a process. I would say what comes to me first in my composition is my chorus and my bridges. They always come first. And then from there, I try to finish the composition. And what inspires me to finish the composition and the inspiration I go towards is moments. I love moments. I love capturing moments in my music. And I love the realizations that hit and the events surrounding them. So you can definitely see that in the current three releases that are out. I have Front Row, my debut single, and the moment that's captured in Front Row is in the lyric in the second verse. You know, you tried to fix yourself when you weren't broken. And that whole message is capturing the moment of you're fine the way you are. You don't need to fix yourself. You're perfect. And you don't need to listen to other people trying to put you down. So that's the message and moment in Front Row. And then the right guy, that moment is, you know, just feeling like you found someone that fits your chapter and that was written for you. And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, that moment is, am I really just another friend or am I the girl you would call your own? Which is a lyric in the second verse. And that's the moment of, you know, wanting clarity when there's hesitation between two people who very clearly like each other, but neither of them is making a move. They're bound by hesitation. And so that's a moment that's captured in Don't You Want to Be With Me. So definitely, every time I create a song, the moments are what inspire it to be finished and help me.
And you used to write poetry as well, is that correct?
Yes, that is true. I did used to write poetry. I honestly have stopped writing poetry for a while, but I did growing up. And it is kind of what helped maybe not usher me into songwriting, but it is very similar to songwriting as well, that in poetry you're trying to tell a story. And in a lot of poetry, there are twists, plot twists kind of near the end, maybe something that's uncovered that you don't know until the end of the poem. And so, yeah, in that way, there is kind of a connection. But yeah, I did used to write poetry. I wonder what I should do. Maybe I should post it one day. I don't know. We'll see.
I think there's such a good connection there because like lyrically, I'm sure it helped you like already kind of having a bit of an eye for structure and elements like those. And you self-describe your genre as dream romance pop. How would you define the genre if it was like an urban dictionary or anything and your sound, including how it's evolved over the past few years?
Of course. So for me, dream romance pop is really about love in all its forms. And I always try to capture that in my music, from frustration to longing to infatuation to even heartbreak. Those are all kind of forms of love in many different, you know, categories and sections and emotions. So for me, Dream Romance Pop is pop and pop rock, and it really is an immersive experience. It's music, lyrics, and visuals all tangled together. And most of all, in Dream Romance Pop, what I want people to take away from it is that it's supposed to make you feel like an utterly hopeful romantic. It's a hopeful romantic. So yeah, and evolution is in the making. I will love to, you know, explore how that evolves. But yeah, for now, I want everyone, no matter what the song is, I want you to feel like a hopeful romantic while you listen.
I love that. And with song structure, we've talked about it a bit before, you've referenced it. Tell me about experimenting in your music and how you end up with a finished song. Like, when do you know when it's time to stop experimenting and just say, okay, this is good, let's put it out?
Yeah, for me, I could keep adjusting forever, Chloe. For me, I could just keep doing it forever. I think personally, I never stop experimenting. I always try to push myself to do something different in each song. And even in the songs that are out now, I always play with song structure and I always try something new for the song. For example, Front Row, debut single. In Front Row, near the end, there are those choir vocals. That was the first time I ever did choir vocals in a song in totality. And so that was me experimenting and playing with it. And to do that, I had to stand at different sides of the microphone in the studio, from the front to the side, all around it. And so that was a very experimental thing for me. And but the song knew what it needed. And so I was following what the song wanted. And then for the right guy, that experimentation is that it switches genres as you're listening to it. It starts off as pop, and then it becomes pop rock, and then at the end it's rock. So that's the experimentation and the flair that the right guy has. And that's the experimentation side of that. And then Don't You Wanna Be With Me, my angry love song, my newest release, that type of experimentation is that in the first verse, it's doubled, and in the second chorus, it's split in half. And it really just needed that because it's about frustration with longing at its core. And so experimenting with all these different formats and sounds is what is inspiring for me. It's why I love doing what I do. And so for that reason, I think that I'll always want to keep experimenting with no matter, maybe in the future I'll add more risky instruments. But for now, I'm more into that pop and pop rock, dream romance pop feel.
Well, it's all about creativity. And I know for Front Row, you also released like a sped up version of it. You've kind of teased really wanting to do a screamo version of The Right Guy. So, I mean, where does that kind of influence come in when you're like, I think this would sound good as a screamo version? Like, who's going to be doing those vocals? Are you going to train your voice to go a bit heavier?
You know, I was thinking about that. I spoke about it recently, kind of with a friend about it. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a screamo version? And they were like, Yafania, the right guy, very lovely song. You sure you want a screamo version? I was like, yes, everything needs a screamo version. Absolutely. So yeah, I would love to see different versions. And no matter who you are, something I really try to do in my songs, and I kind of, you can do it for the right guy. I want people to sing it, no matter what your gender is, your orientation. I want you to be able to sing my songs, and Don't You Want to Be With Me. You can sing it to someone, no matter your gender, your orientation. It's just meant for the person that you love, who you're talking to, no matter who they are in your own personal life. So, yeah, but I would definitely love to hear different versions, rock versions, screamo versions, maybe more hyper pop versions. Let's do it. I think that would be so fun to watch. And I would repost them for sure.
So, for any musicians out there wanting to do a cover of a new song, Yafania has you covered,
Yeah.
the right guy. But all of them, I think, would sound great. It's always fun, I'm sure, to hear like experimenting both yourself and like other artists hearing that as well. I want to talk specifically about the right guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me, how those songs tie together. Tell me about this project and the story behind it.
Well, the story behind it, it's a duology, which is currently out now. But something about The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me is that it was a story that's always been in my head and that I've always wanted to share, especially after writing the songs. There is a connection between them, and it's a love story. So it's a cinematic story, it's a concept, basically, duology. So it's the same narrative in both music videos. And it's an evolving love story between friends who are a little more romantic. They want to be more, and they're trying to explore how they can make that a possibility. And that's definitely the tying same concept love story between both of them. And in The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me, they are the same, story, but they explore different things. They're two sides of the same coin. So in The Right Guy, it really is about justification at its core and feeling that you found the perfect person, someone who's written for you, meant to be in your story, and just falling in love with the right guy. I mean, he's everything. He's loyal, he's honest, he's modest, he keeps up with every promise. That's a lyric from the bridge, but it's true. And he's just perfect, you know? And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, that story kind of evolves from her, my character's realization that she really loves her friend. And it goes into a different direction where in The Right Guy, it's her being like, "You're shy, and that's fine. I'll wait for you. I'm patient." And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, it's a complete switch. It's, "Why are you shy? I'm impatient. Say you like me. We both know you like me, and I like you. So don't you want to be with me?" And so that is the connection to the overall story so far.
I like that you added the so far at the end because we know or we're hoping that there's more to come with that. But I think one of my favorite lyrics throughout both of the songs is the "Is it fear or my impatience?" And "Don't you want to be with me?" because it kind of encapsulates, like you mentioned, where she's at, like emotionally, what her thoughts are towards him. In the second part, how was it recording this music in studio and working with a band?
Yeah, I mean, the production process is always fun. I have a standard process when I go to record. So for me, I always finish my full composition and my full lyrics and just completely finish the song on my own. Then I approach my lead musician, Eddie Lamb, and we make a simple acoustic demo, and then we give it to a drummer and a bassist that at the studio we go to. And then from there, they absorb that. And then a week later, we go to the studio and we start to record. And that recording process is the first day we get all the instrumentation down. I make sure I have all the layers because in my head, when I write compositions, I always hear the full song. And that's just the way my mind works. I hear layers. So I always go on the first day, make sure we have all the layers we need, the guitar layers, the bass layers, and the drum layers. And then my sound engineer, Alex, and I, after that, I go make sure that everything is like tight, smooth, and we record vocals. And then occasionally we bring my lead musician, Eddie Lamb, back if I feel we need more layers. And that was definitely the case in The Right Guy. I just wanted more guitar layers for that. And so that's basically the standard process. But I will tell you, it is so hard to let go when you're in the studio. It is just, I could keep adjusting forever. I could just keep working on it forever and just immerse myself in it. Oftentimes, how I let go of songs, especially when I'm in the recording studio, is I just take a step back and then I try to listen to it as a listener. And if I can daydream to it, that's when I know a song is finished. When I can just completely detach myself and listen to it and just daydream to it, I know it's finished and that my job is done and the song can be put out into the world and that it's just perfect for that. But for sure, I always joke about moving into a recording studio. I'm always like, that would be great. My own Barbie dream house, strawberry shortcake living experience. I would love to live in a recording studio. There might be wires, but we'll find a way to make it work. But yeah, that is the production process, and it's so fun. And I'm so grateful that I have people in my life and my lead musician, Eddie Lamb, and the people around me who just really care about my vision and bringing it to reality in a recording. And that's just the best part.
That's so great. And I imagine at the end of the day, they're like, "Yafania, your studio time's up." And they have to like pull you away from the studio to get you to leave. But I know you previously also gave a shout out to Eddie for his support in the studio. And it's always nice to have someone, you mentioned he's your lead musician, to kind of be able to maybe help fine tune some of these areas.
Yeah, exactly. And just like play it and like put it in the recording. I think that's always the best part. And yeah, and also my sound engineer, Alex Penny. So it's just everyone is just amazing. I'm so lucky to do what I do. So great when you have people who support you and want to help make your vision a reality, especially because I'm a dreamy romantic. So that obviously shines through. And the fact that people can see that and want to support is so sweet. And yeah, they definitely deserve their credit.
Can you share any details about what comes next and how many parts are remaining in this kind of in this project? You mentioned a duology, but we know that it's not the end of the story for these characters.
What I'll say is that in a chapter book, there are always more than two chapters. So we have The Right Guy, which is what I teased as the first chapter. Don't You Want to Be With Me, the second chapter. And so I will keep that to myself for now. But what I will say is that in a chapter book, which is what the story that we're going for is, there's more than two chapters, especially because it's not a picture book. So there are definitely more than two chapters, but you'll have to wait and see.
You did work with the same directors, Syed and cinematographer Darcy for all three of your released music videos. So that includes Front Row as well. Tell me about how that collaboration started and the working relationship that you have with this pair.
Well, that's true. It all started with Front Row, my debut music video. And I knew Syed before, and Syed introduced me to Darcy Muenchrath, my cinematographer. And the experience of Front Row was so beautiful. They respected and believed in my vision. And the fact that they're professionals who believed in me and wanted to implement it means the world because it means I was doing something right, even as a rookie, as I've said before. But it's a great atmosphere and they're efficient and focused and so artistically driven, both of them, genuinely. And I mean, after Front Row, it went greatly. And I just felt that they were the pair that I wanted to work with for the right guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me because Front Row was so memorable. And so I approached them and they were so down to do it. And the fact that they wanted to capture the beauty in every shot means so much. I think something about Saeed and Darcy Muenchrath that I really respected is that Saeed is an award-winning director and Darcy Muenchrath, fantastic, amazing cinematographer. And both of them have experience when it comes to filming complex films and series. And the series part, I think, is what really helped us because we did The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me. And when we went to the school that day, we did 45 setups in the school, camera setups. And for those who know, 45 camera setups is quite a lot. So they pushed through it because they were so dedicated to capturing the beauty in every shot. But yeah, we had a lot of laughs and they're just so fun. Other than being focused, they're so fun. And I miss working with them. And I look forward to working with them again. They're so fun. And I can't wait to do more projects in the future.
You are co-director for a couple of the videos. So how involved were you with the behind the scenes and creative process?
I was very hands-on. I was the co-director and the concept and even the shots, I have the storyboards that I created before we went to film and the treatment scripts. So this was something really true to my heart. It was something that I poured my heart into because it really was my story. And a lot of it is inspired based on real life. And that is just the most truest part of me. And you can see that. And there are little embellishments that I'll share in the future, not for now, but there are embellishments in The Right Guy specifically that are so true to what I actually went through when I was head over heels. So it really was just lyrics as a handbook, but also some sprinkles of personal experience in there. So in that regard, yes, I was the co-director, storyboard person, the one who approached with the vision and the concept in her hands. And yeah, from there we made it a reality. So I was always very hands-on in the process. And that was a very tricky experience because I was acting and I'm the artist and I was the co-director. So it was very much trying to balance all of those roles to, you know, let the project come to fruition. But it did. I'm so grateful for that.
Definitely very, very busy throughout the whole shoot and I guess leading up to it and I'm guessing in post-production after. But I know that you styled both yourself and Pearce. I love the red black theme you had going on. I can see in your daily life that's also something that's kind of close to you and personal. Everything from the wardrobe to even her your locker decor in the school.
Of course. And even the locker decor, that's really funny that you mention it. We completely rushed through it, me and one of the people who were with me on set from the crew. It was just us rushing it the night before. I was like, oh my gosh, we don't have anything for the locker. The locker's gray. I don't know if it's gonna look good on camera. And so I went and I printed out, if you look into it, I actually have a Mazzy Star poster and I have a little cranberries and I believe I have a little smashing pumpkins in there too now that I think of it. So ironically, these three posters, but kind of in miniature form. And so that is what made the locker look good. That red as well. Also, a lot of the props, like the physics textbook, which is in Don't You Want to Be With Me, it was very important for me to put that in there because chemistry is so cheesy. If I carried a chemistry book, it's a love song, angry love song, that would be cheesy. So I was like, physics, let's have that velocity, that tension. So everything was intentional when it came to that. But thank you for noticing that. I really did put that effort in.
That's great. And it took me back to my days in school when I remember, oh yeah, like everyone had decorated their locker. Like they would print out pictures, anything to make it seem a bit more personal and fun. And let's talk about one of your co-stars from Front Row, a non-human co-star, but you've been fortunate to work with so many great people. But Cash was your on-screen horse in Front Row. So how was your bonding experience with Cash and being at the stables for that shoot?
Cash is one of the most professional, timely co-stars. No, but he was incredible. Such a beautiful horse and so fun and loving as well. Something that really struck me when I first met Cash is that he introduced me to his friends at the stable, the other horses, and I introduced him to my friends, which was the crew. So we both introduced each other to our friends and we got to act with one another. But yeah, Cash is a beautiful horse. And it was almost like he knew he was being filmed because, we'd be acting together on screen and his friends would occasionally come by and like try to holler at him and talk to him. And he would just completely ignore them and like almost respond back to them like, guys, I'm busy. I'm like being filmed right now. So it was just such a friendship. And actually, the opening shot of Front Row in the music video, I dropped the apple basket. And that was a tricky shot. We had to do that multiple times because he kept eating the apples. And that was a little tricky, but I love that experience and I would totally do it again. And I think he is a very professional co-star. So that's what I'll say about Cash, the horse.
That's fantastic. And I'm guessing Cash was just feeling very hungry that day, eating all the apples that were
Yeah.
meant to be props. But whereabouts was that shot? Do you remember?
Yeah, so we filmed at, Glen Valley Stables in Langley, British Columbia, and that was just a beautiful experience. And yeah, I'm never gonna forget it. Such a beautiful atmosphere. And all the other horses there were beautiful as well. I got to even like pet some of them and bond with some of them, but Cash and I, we were tight. We were the friends on set. So that was for sure one of the best experiences. Yeah, I wonder if he's gonna see this interview. Maybe he will. Maybe
I
he'll
was gonna
tell.
say like for it to be your debut music video and get to like have a shoot at the stables with actual horses is something that probably very few people get to do. So very cool for you to get the chance to do that. Let's move into The Right Guy, your second music video. How is it for you acting with a scene partner, having to play out your own narrative? I know you kind of touched on it being a busy time for you, but like, how did it challenge you really? Because acting is something new to you as well.
True. So my co-star is Disney's Pearce Joza, and he's been my co-star in The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me in this duology of chapters. And yeah, for sure. I mean, it was quite challenging for me because I was just a co-director and I was the artist and I was also the actress. So something that I really had to learn is that I can't be acting and try to direct because occasionally I would just think about directing the scene when I'm acting, and you can't do that. You have to focus on one thing. So I would be doing that, or I'd be directing and then focus on acting. And so I really had to let go and just immerse myself in whatever I was doing, whether I was being a co director and just focus on that, or being an actress and having Pearce as my scene partner. But I think that that was quite tricky, but it was very fun to flip personalities with Pearce throughout the day because we filmed the locker scene in The Right Guy and then we did an homage to it and Don't You Want to Be With Me. And that was very fun because we had to act like we knew each other for a long time, to act like there was infatuation between us and The Right Guy. And then we had to act like we knew each other for an even longer time so we could act angry at each other and Don't You Want to Be With Me. So yeah, but I would totally do it again. It was such a memorable experience, even balancing all of it out.
How many days did you spend like per video, or was it very much intertwined? Because I know you mentioned like the school set, and you kind of have school sets in both of these videos.
Yeah, so The Right Guy specifically was filmed over the course of a few days. There are many shots in The Right Guy. We explore so many different locations in that first chapter. And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, we did film the school scenes in Don't You Want to Be With Me the same day we did the school scenes in The Right Guy. So that was quite challenging. But I think that we honestly stayed on top of our game. All of us, we stayed on top of our game. And I had a lot of other people as well beside me. So that was really nice to stay on time and on track. And we were doing 45 camera setups a day. That's a lot of work. So the fact that Darcy Muenchrath, Khallaf, me, and the rest of the crew as well, we were just all on it. That matters so much. And so, yeah. So even with those locations, we managed to achieve everything we needed.
Tell me about working with Pierce as your right guy. Like, what qualities did he embody, and how did you build that chemistry when you met him in Vancouver?
Yeah, so I approached Pierce with a lookbook and a letter. And before I got to that point, there were a handful of actors that I had in mind to be my co-star. But Pierce was a name that we continuously kept coming back to, me and director Syed. And we would constantly keep going back to that name because we firmly believe that he looks like the boy next door. And I don't think we were wrong. I think the casting was spot on. And so he really did embody the boy next door. And that's kind of what we went for. So we approached him. And from there, it was really nice to get to know him. He's a very artistically driven person. And so I think that being with him on set beforehand, trying to work on that chemistry, also talking to him about my plans and the fact that he was as immersed in the world as I was in, and he fell in love with these characters as well. That is honestly which is kind of what sweetened the pot. And it's the best part.
You mentioned you approached him with a lookbook and a letter. Was it a handwritten letter?
It was a text letter, like written on a computer. So maybe if I did it more handwritten, like more Shakespearean, if you will. But I think that it was good for what it was. But yeah, I mean, it had a detailed description of the characters and the locations in the right guy, even the settings and the school and the outfits. So it really did kind of show also the lyrics, some of it. So it was like this beautiful, like visual image of what it looked like. And I'm pretty sure that if I were to revisit that lookbook now, 99% of it would be true. And it's actually what happened when we filmed The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me. And it was spot on representation.
I love that your proposal worked and it clearly like drew him into wanting to be a part of your project. Before he came to Vancouver to shoot, like had you met him virtually and discussed the concept and characters in advance, like over video call or over the phone?
Yeah, we did. We spoke virtually a few times. I think that for Pierce specifically, something that I told him beforehand was that I really wanted to build a connection. I really wanted to build some type of friendship, some type of chemistry that could translate as on-screen chemistry. And to, my surprise, he was really into it as well. And he was like, yeah, that makes sense. I remember that. He was like, yeah, that makes sense. But we need to have good on-screen chemistry. So yeah, let's talk. And so we would speak about occasional things. Actually, in The Right Guy, in his room, some of the posters that are there in the scene when we're both getting ready, those were from a conversation we had virtually. Because I asked him, like, oh, like, what are some of your favorite movies? Or what are some things that you like? And we can incorporate it into The Right Guy's room when he's getting ready. So there's like a Top Gun Maverick poster. I think there's an Inception poster. So there are kind of those hints. And there's actually Easter eggs to Don't You Want to Be With Me, which I can speak about now since Don't You Want to Be With Me is out. There is an Easter egg in his room of the angels behind him. So if you go watch that, that is what translated into Don't You Want to Be With Me, where I am an angel in the whole music video. So there are kind of those hints and Easter eggs there.
I want to talk about leaning into the romantic aspect. How is that for you with someone you recently met, but have clearly like developed a bit of a friendship with, but not to the same extent as these characters in your story?
Yeah, I mean, I would say working with anyone, no matter what field you're in, meeting someone new can be vulnerable. We've all been there. And I think that what made a difference, though, in kind of creating that calm atmosphere between us and building that chemistry is that we were really focused on building a friendship before we went on set to film. So, creating a chemistry on and off screen mattered because it would translate directly when we would film. So we spoke about art and travel and just our lives and films. And that really made a difference. And our commitment was high, him as a professional actor, me as the artist and an actress. And, this is a story that I've had in my head for a while. So we definitely wanted to bring our all to it. And I think we did. We definitely did for these projects. And it really felt like a classmate kind of scenario, which is kind of ironic because our characters in both the music videos are classmates. A lot of stuff happens in the school hallway. If from what most people remember in high school, the school hallway always has the most secrets and scenarios and kind of situations. So it was kind of sweet to have someone like Pearce actually be like a classmate to me when we were filming. It was just so fun.
And you mentioned before how sweet and supportive that he was for you as well as kind of like your first time acting, especially with a scene partner. I know you talked about it before and how your character's feelings have evolved over the first two parts of the series, those emotions. Is there anything more that you want to add to kind of how she's feeling in that linear narrative and the doubts and hesitations that she has?
Yeah, so in The Right Guy, her journey is very specific. The Right Guy tells a story, it's really a friendship about friends to romance to wanting to be something more. And so in The Right Guy, it really is this justification at its core, where it's her falling in love with the right guy who's perfectly, created on paper. He's honest, modest, loyal, sweet, and it's all about justifications in the lyrics. She's like, well, I think I knew you back then for a while. Sometimes I'd blush before you'd cast your perfect smile. And it's all of these kind of justifications why she's right for falling in love with the right guy. And so it really is all about her falling in love and wanting to be with him. And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, it's kind of a different side of the same coin now for her in this narrative because she loves him. And then a new girl is introduced, kind of a rival. But her purpose in the story isn't this jealousy arc. It isn't to be a jealous kind of figure for her towards him. Her purpose in the story is that he is delaying telling her that he loves her, even though she knows he does. And he knows he does too. So it's just very, just emotionally involving. And there's also a timeline that we explore. So the first half of The Right Guy, and this is true, the first half of The Right Guy, up until the scene before, like when she's getting ready and they're getting ready to meet, Don't You Want to Be With Me actually fits in the middle of that. So it's a narrative timeline. So it all takes place in school because then in The Right Guy, there's that lyric, few has now turned to many years. I look for you in the crowd where you can disappear. And so we're getting ready and we look older. And so that is where Don't You Want to Be With Me fits in the timeline, even though it's the second chapter, but it fits in the timeline. And then the second half of The Right Guy, from him running to give her the bag to the night scene that is so romantic, that is the second half. So yeah, there's definitely a timeline of emotions. But I would definitely say in Don't You Want to Be With Me, it really is all about Don't You Want to Be With Me? Am I really just another friend or am I the girl you'd call your own? And it's really about exploring the different answers to the question, don't you want to be with me? It's a question that you can ask if you're, you know, confused. Don't you want to be with me? It's a question you can ask when you're angry. Why not me? Don't you want to be with me? Or even when you're flirty, like, don't you want to be with me? I'm amazing. So it's just all of these different explorations, even in the music video. I really wanted to explore the longing behind it, the frustration behind it, and kind of the maybe successful, a little bit, cocky, egotistical side behind it of don't you want to be with me? Like, I got you, Like you said you liked me. So yeah, that's definitely her journey.
I love how, you can clearly see how passionate you are about the subject and your character and what she's going through. I wanted to ask about like a moment in the video where she is the one that pulls away from the kiss on the bench and opts for a hug when he returns her bag. So tell me about that moment for her as someone who seemingly really wants, this relationship, but she's the one who kind of pulls back.
Of course, I think everyone has been there. I think the reason why that scene is so memorable for the people that watched it is that it really is true. And you can definitely see it in the scene where she's getting ready in the mirror. She's singing, the song. And it really is her, in the mirror, she's confident, right? She's like, oh, I look amazing. Like, if something happens, I'm ready for it. I look cool. And then when she gets on the bench, she just freezes. And that's a very accurate representation of people in real life. For me, I know I definitely have been there before where I'm confident and I'm like, oh, like everything's gonna go great. And if anything happens, like I'll be ready. And then when I go there, I freeze because it's just happening so fast, maybe, or maybe just the fact that it's happening just kind of puts you off guard. So there was definitely that scene, and that she leaves, she gets a call, so she has to go. Like the moment is ruined anyway, but that's already just like the tension behind it. And then the fact that he goes and he brings her, her bag that she left behind, that shows that there's love behind it. Something also that I really wanted to portray between the characters is that Pearce's character, the bright guy, when he chases after her with the bag, and he gets there, when he leans on the tree, that emotion behind it is that he doesn't know how she's going to react because they already had that awkward kiss scene rejection kind of. So he, in his mind, he's like, oh no, like this is going to be so awkward. Like, I hope that things are fine between us. And then it turns out, yeah, everything is fine between them. Another scene in the night scene in The Right Guy, which was so important for me to have, that goes off of that bench scene, was the scene when he holds on to her shoulder and she kind of like brushes him off. She's like, yeah, yeah, like she brushes him off. And then he reaffirms his hand there. And it's just like this moment where you're like looking at the person and you're in love. And that was actually planned, but it was really done on the fly. That scene wasn't going to be there. It was going to be kind of like, him trying to comfort her. But that scene of just me looking at him and then being like, yeah, like it's fine, like playfully pushing him away because of the awkward tension between two people, and then him reaffirming his hand, that was done on the spot. And it was really important. And I remember in editing, it was something that, because I was in the editing process as well, so it was something that director Syed and I were talking about in the editing process, and I was like, I have to have this scene. And he was like, oh, that's an interesting scene, but like, are you sure, like you can do a better scene? I'm like, no, I have to have this scene. This is so true to how you feel. So that is basically that extension of the bench kiss scene. But yeah, I would say with every music video, I love to do plot twists, and you can definitely see that in The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me.
I wanted to ask, I don't know if you know the answer, if this is intentional, but what was so important in the bag that it had to be returned late at night? It couldn't wait until like school the next day.
That's so wise. I think for me personally, when I wrote it, it was just a way to show that he cares. And it was a way to show that kind of a Cinderella glass slipper, now that I think about it, kind of like getting her what she missed at the right time because he's the right guy. So there definitely is that aspect now that I think about it. But I think more than that, because it's a timeline, so they meet much later. And the way I originally wrote it in the storyboards, but it was very hard to do in actuality in the music video, was that she's going to work. Like she got a work call, or she got like an office call. She has to be somewhere and she forgot her bag. And that she's waiting outside because he texted her or called her, as seen in The Right Guy. He calls her in the car. And she's in the car and she's just like, oh no, my bag. Like, oh, you know, and it's kind of also another reason for them to meet again because it's an awkward situation. He was about to kiss her, she wanted to kiss him, but she was awkward about it, and then they got interrupted by that call, which is already just a scenario. And then later, when he brings the bag back, that really just does signify that he wants to see her again, and also that he wants to be there for her because he's the right guy. He's honest, he's modest, and those were the qualities of his character.
I definitely then call it a plot device to kind of, feel their meeting again. But I love that. And it was such a sweet moment, like the fact that, like you mentioned, it's not like this character questions what's in the bag at all. It's just like, oh, she lost this. It has to get back to her. What keeps viewers guessing is in these kind of sequences, they're guessing what's reality, what's not reality, who's daydreaming in this situation, what's real. What can you say about these moments for the characters?
Well, when The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me came out, it was really important for me to have these plot twist endings. So for The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me, I actually got a lot of interpretations about what the ending is, and that was probably the best part about releasing both music videos. So some interpretations I've gotten from The Right Guy is that she is daydreaming the whole thing, especially that night scene. Those jump cuts were so important for me, especially to show just like all the different angles of like love, like at its like truest form, and this like tension. So there's definitely that. I got that she was dreaming the whole thing. I got that they're both daydreaming the whole thing at the same time. So he's daydreaming with her as well. And he kind of wakes her up from the daydream. And then for Don't You Want to Be With Me, totally different interpretations. So I've gotten the interpretation that those angel scenes, the smoke scenes, her with the band, it's all in her head. That she's like watching him and like kind of the story and what's happening, but it really is all in her head that none of this happened. And then I've also gotten that actually it all happened, but those scenes of her as an angel and with the band and in the smoke and when he opens the auditorium, that those are all him kind of seeing her as a fallen angel. But I would say more than any of that, I know the truth. I know the real endings. But I just love seeing those interpretations. And especially the Don't You Want to Be With Me scene where he sees her as an angel. For me, what I can say is that when I was head over heels with someone, I wrote Don't You Want to Be With Me about them. And I would do journal entries and I would keep writing about who am I in your head? That was a question I would constantly write down because I'm very emotional and I like to write. So I would write, who am I in your head? What do I look like? How do you perceive me? And if you perceive me in a certain way, positive, negative, whatever, why aren't you making a move? And so, because of my emotional baggage and also because of Don't You Want to Be With Me, I really wanted to show that in his head, she's an angel and that's the way I'm perceived, that I'm perceived as an angel and someone with utter devotion and love that he feels towards her. So that is kind of my own personal life sprinkled in there. So that is the ending to Don't You Want to Be With Me and kind of what it signifies, the whole angel imagery. But for The Right Guy, I will still keep that a secret. But I love seeing the interpretations.
You basically answered my next question about what the angel wings symbolize, but those band shots must have been so much fun to be up on that stage and kind of be that rock star. And I love that song in particular. What is great is you can kind of both see and hear your emotions change from the annoyance and the anger to something with hope and excitement as the song progresses.
Yeah, that was something that I really wanted to show in Don't You Want to Be With Me, because for me personally, yes, there are a lot of love songs out there, but Don't You Want to Be With Me is an angry love song. And I think, not that there aren't enough angry love songs, but I would love to explore more. But because it was such an angry love song, it was also important for me to rein in based on the narrative. Why is she angry? Like, it's not just angry that don't you want to be with me, but there's a deeper reason, which is frustration with longing at its core. And I think that's what's so special about Don't You Want to Be With Me, that you're watching kind of these angry scenarios and her being frustrated and, but it was really important for me to show that beyond it, it's longing at its core. And I really wanted to show in the suburbia scene, actually, that's in Don't You Want to Be With Me, that their two mindsets are not really in the same place, even though they have the same emotion in mind. So for me, my character, I'm walking on the suburbia path with him, but I'm uncomfortable. I'm not totally comfortable. And it's not because of what happened with the rival girl, but it's mostly just about why aren't you saying you like me? Like we both know you like me. And it's just like this kind of disappointment as they're walking. But then on the flip side, I wanted to show the right guy, Pearce's character. I wanted to show that he's talking and moving his hands and they're walking because they're friends. They've known each other for a long time. So they're completely comfortable with one another. And he's comfortable, but he's comfortable because he doesn't feel that the moment has to arrive where he has to confess so soon, that he can delay it for a while. Well, she, on the other hand, wants clarity and wants an answer. So that is definitely a moment that you can see between those two emotions, I would say.
What's also interesting now that you're kind of, we're talking about the emotions is sometimes you wonder, oh, like how come she doesn't feel like she has to say it first? But I know that she does want the guy to say it, hopeless romantic. You always want to hear it first rather than give it out.
Yeah, 100%. I think that for me personally, I think the amazing thing about the duology is that you are seeing kind of two people, which is so relatable, who are so bad at telling each other that they like one another, even though they do. And it's just, even though there's that dream romance aspect of it, that dream romance doesn't mean it's impossible. It is attainable. It just takes a while to grow from there. So that's definitely kind of the story that's being told right now through these music videos. It's that, the realistic part of it. You've known each other for a while. Why aren't you making a move? But we all know that real life takes a while sometimes for people to say how they feel.
You've mentioned interpretations. You've received a lot of positive response from not only the music videos, but the music itself and your lyrics. So what has that meant to you? And did any of it come as a surprise?
Honestly, didn't come it didn't come as a surprise. I genuinely put the effort in. I really wanted it to be something that people can watch twice. I wanted people to click on the video twice and enjoy the visuals on screen and the story and the narrative. So it was just something I hoped for. But for me, the outpour of love is incredible. I pour my heart into everything I write. And in my music, I don't just give my words, I give my heart. So seeing all those reactions and people enjoying it is so fun and sweet. And the fact that I've gotten people even message me what the interpretations of the ending is really fun. That people are really taking it and they're kind of being little detectives on their own, trying to piece things. And even in Don't You Want to Be With Me, before it came out, when we were teasing it, it was also, people were like, oh, who's the co-star gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Are you bringing a new co-star? And I didn't really answer that question. And then we announced that Pearce was coming back, and that was really fun as well. So it really is just being interactive with my community is the best part. And the fact that they're loving the music and that some people had me on their Spotify Wrapped, that's so fun. That's amazing. Yeah. So I love everyone out there.
Do you have any memorable stories that you can share from filming The Right Guy and Don't You Want to Be With Me?
I have many. I would love to make a breakdown video, just kind of breaking down everything and maybe the memory behind it. But for the right guy, I would say waiting for nightfall for to shoot the night scene because we all thought that the sunset was going to happen early and it didn't. It took so long for some reason. So we had to wait it out. So that was a very fun memory with the right guy. Also because it was night and we had to shoot the scenes really fast. So all of those angles were shot so fast, like back to back to back. We had to like get it. So that's one of my favorite memories about the right guy. Also the locker scene in the right guy. It's so memorable. So many people really love that. And that's why we had to have an homage to it. And Don't You Want to Be With Me. And I mean, the right guy, those memories by the lockers, it was just us having fun, just us laughing and talking about pop culture. Something that we really tried to do, which is memorable for all of them, is that every time Pearce and I would interact, it was us actually talking about life and about pop culture or films or music or, things that we're going to do after. But it was just us talking because I told him before, I was like, I don't want to like mouth words. We have to talk. It's gonna look really weird if we both are like just silently like miming. It just is so obvious. So he was down to do it. He said, absolutely, let's just talk. So we were just talking. So that's a memorable moment I have in those conversations as well. And then in Don't You Want to Be With Me, I have so many memorable moments. I mean, the opening shot in Don't You Want to Be With Me, the putting the finger up and then opening the eyes, that was improvised. That wasn't going to be the opening shot. The opening shot, when I storyboarded it originally, it was just going to be me with my eyes closed, and then I opened them. And it's a surprise, like, oh, like the video's gonna start now. But when I did it, I didn't really like the way my eyes opened. But then that shot was done waiting between takes, kind of like, just waiting. So I was like this, and then I did it, and then it was the shot. And I watched it back, and I was like, I don't like any of these shots of me opening my eyes. And then I saw that shot, and I was like, that shot. It represents kind of like a curtain call moment. I was like, that shot is the shot. And then also on Don't You Want to Be With Me, another memorable story is that I had Lane from the Sifters and Piers and Sub from Farhaven, and they're their own bands, but they were my backing band in the music video. And it was so fun filming with them as well. I would say that I was so emotional on the set of Don't You Want to Be With Me that I cried. I cried, especially in the scene with the smoke and the scene of looking down with the microphone and the longing part of the song, which is like, don't you want to be with me? Like the slow part, the where the music kind of fades down. I cried because it just all of the emotions and the memories came flooding to me. And it was just so true. It was so true in that moment. But I'm really lucky that the guys didn't notice because that would have made me look so uncool. Like, I'm so happy that they didn't notice. And yeah, but maybe I'll release those crying shots. I'm still thinking about it. Maybe I will. But for now, those are my favorite memories from each.
So like emotional, but I hope it's also like healing in a way. Like it's just something that's so personal to you. So it's so nice to see like the project coming to fruition. And obviously you're very happy with the final project, even though it took some experimentation to get there. Like you mentioned, the kind of improvised shots that made it in. I know you filmed at UBC. That was the night scenes, and then outside Van Tech. Was the inside school also at Van Tech or?
Yes. So the inside of the school was Van Tech. I actually have gotten that question from some people before. They're like, that school looks amazing. What school is that? And so I had the same reaction when I found the school when we were location scouting. And I was looking, I'm like, I want the school that's like beige. I want this like beautiful, picturesque school. And then Vancouver Technical Secondary, ironically, is where my director Syed, one of his children, used to go there that graduated. And he was like, oh, that school is great for filming. Like those lockers are great. The outside looks great. And then we went and it was great. I was like, wow, like it's just two for one. Who'd have thought, you know? But yeah, so those were the locations. And then we filmed in Coquitlam, where the running scene is, where Pierce was running with the bag. That was filmed on a city strip in Coquitlam, British Columbia. And that was fun as well. And I didn't run, but I was watching
You were
the scene.
behind the camera, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was behind the camera. I was like, this looks great. Like, I love this scene. And the suburbia scenes were also filmed there in Coquitlam as well. So that was really fun. And I love all those locations. We filmed in a house as well. And now I'm starting to remember like all the locations we went to. So yeah, The Right Guy was full of locations, which is why people should watch it.
You've been quite active on TikTok and social media since the spring when you began to promote and release your music. So tell me about your relationship with content creation and how you've been able to use it to your advantage.
Well, I've loved editing since iMovie and the PowerPoint presentation days, but I always love going to different locations and I always have my camera on me. So it's a win for win. I'm always ready to go and film something. For me, I really spend time planning my content, and a lot of it is inspired by the music videos or the lyrics. I really love going for that kind of being playful and imagining it in terms of creating content ideas. And I make my own templates. So I really try to go for my own unique style. And when I look at the front row days, the very first, content creation, if you will, that's on the internet of me in front row, my style has evolved. It is kind of different. Some elements are still there, but it is kind of more flashy, I guess now. It's just more concise, and I can't wait to share more content. But yeah, I think that style is personal. And yeah, that's pretty much the best part about making content. Oh yeah, The Right Guy. When we did The Right Guy, that was actually my idea for the content creation. The Right Guy is a great example of content creation because when I was with, Pearce Joza, my co-star, when I was with him, we really wanted to tease me looking for the right guy. it was just like this fun thing that we took everyone on. And I would ask people like, who should I cast as my co-star? Or I'm looking for the right guy. And then Pearce would repost it. And people would be like, oh, this girl is looking for the right guy. And then they'd message me. They'd be like, oh, Pearce should be the right guy. You should get him. He's been posting your stories, you know? So get him to be the right guy. And then we announced it. And they were like, oh my gosh, it's true. Like she found the right guy. And Pearce like got to be in it with her.
Does it ever get more comfortable for you lip syncing in public places? Because I know you've been to the parks, the grocery stores, walking on the street.
Honestly, it's so funny. Thank you so much for mentioning that. It is really interesting. I love the fact that, when I walk in public, everything is fine. But when I walk in public, people don't really, like, people are busy shopping, they don't notice. But the minute I have a camera open, everyone stops and they all have to look at me. And it's so fun as well to kind of gather what people think my job is. It's always so fun. I mean, even in Don't Want to Be With Me, I had a camera and I went to a Subway after we filmed. And it was just so funny to see kind of the cashier's reaction to what I do for a living. He was like, he was like, "Are you a musician? Are you like a dancer? Like, what's going on? Why do you have these wings and you're performing with a camera and stuff like that?" But it is what it is, and people seem to like it. So I will go with my fan base for this one.
Yeah, and it is really fun content to watch, and it's people want to consume something quick and fun, and that's easy. But obviously for you, like it takes some more time to edit and to post and everything. So kudos to you because you've been posting quite a bit to kind of promote the music and get it out into the world. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. As we round things out, can you share details on what's next for you and if you're working towards the release of a debut EP or album?
Well, for me, there's always a lot in the works. There's definitely more in store for Don't You Want to Be With Me. This chapter is started, it opened, and there's still much more to write about it for my audience out there. But I always love to have something in the works. That's just who I am. And so for that, I would say the future is full of possibilities, and I'm here to stay.
And our signature question for you, if you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
That's a fantastic signature question. I just have to say that from the bat. If I could be an ice cream flavor, I don't want to say vanilla, but I will say vanilla for one reason. If you ever go to a gelato place or an express place and the vanilla ice cream is not good, that is like the sign. The vanilla ice cream, basic flavor, like anyone can make it. So I would say vanilla, but I also really like coffee ice cream, like coffee espresso ice cream. So maybe that as well.
You could do like a mix between the two. Doesn't hurt anyone.
Exactly. Doesn't hurt anyone. I could have someone to share it with, for example, as a hopeful romantic. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Yafania, for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Of course. Well, hopefully we can catch up again in the future. So excited to see what's next for you. But until then, for all those watching, make sure to check out Yafania's music. It is out on all platforms. Her music videos, the latest release, Don't You Want to Be With Me? Make sure to check out that duology so far for those videos. And we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.